All right, so with that in mind, think of this landscape that I've got here. It's divided along this axis, high level of academic freedom and low level of academic freedom. And this one, low level of funding, high level of funding. So let's just talk about that matrix for a moment. So in that quadrant, this is lots of academic freedom, but low funding. We have curiosity-driven research. So you might be interested in an area of research that nobody else is really interested, and it's wonderful. It's your academic freedom to pursue that, but the truth is that maybe there's very little funding in that area. Why? Because nobody sees the value of that. You may, but they haven't understood. So that's you driven there. You following your curiosity in that space. Now, in this quadrant where there's lots of funding, but lower academic freedom, we have what we call directed research. Directed in the sense that people want to fund a solution to, a vaccine for COVID. Now, we've already got that. So let's say a vaccine for HIV/AIDS, things like that. Lots of people want to fund that because they want that solution, they want that idea, they want that knowledge. So they're directing people into that area of research. So here you get lots of funding available, but they're telling you more or less, hey, to do this work, I need you to do that type. To get this funding, you need to do that type of research. Now, these two are separated, but they're not entirely separated. And what I mean by that is, if you need funding to get up and going, you might have to do some directed research, which is maybe not your core, interest, but it's somewhat related. And of course, there's no harm and no rule broken by subsidizing your curiosity. So let me give you an example of what I mean there of subsidy, cross subsidy. If in my world, chemistry and those people in pharmacy and geology and whatnot will understand this really well. If I need a piece of equipment to do my research, maybe I can raise the funding to get the equipment through a directed research grant. Okay, so I'm going to do something that there's a lot of funding for. But that equipment I can use for my curiosity-driven research as well. The funder will never say only samples related to my project can go into that machine, that piece of analytical equipment, for example. It's quite fine to do other samples. So what I'm saying is, in your career, you might need to have more than one project on the go, some in directed and some in curiosity. And the cross-subsidization will help drive these. So that's maybe a new way of thinking. Up until now you were saying, I need a grant to do some research. But maybe you need to have a slightly more complex outlook and have a range of different grants. And you might want to consider plotting on this axis where your various projects are. You might have one here with a lot of funding, but it's pretty close to this line over here. They're quite flexible. The NRF generally is like that. They don't say you have to do this type of research. But other funders will say, hey, you have to. And then, your plot will come down here. And you might have one or two plots of projects that you're working on over here. Now, there are two other quadrants here. So there's hell over there, low funding and no academic freedom. You don't want to be there, avoid at all costs. And heaven, academic freedom and high level of funding. Not sure where that is, but if you find yourself in that place, well, enjoy it. Now, take that same landscape, remove those, but remember them. Okay, so remember curiosity and directed research. Now think of the funders. What are the type of funders that work in those quadrants? So universities, your seed funding, RINC in our case, You know, we never tell you how to spend your rink other than it has to be research related. We don't tell you what type of research, so you can spend it on anything research related. Agencies, what are agencies? The NRF, for example, is an agency. So the NRF does have directed programs, but it has many programs that have no direction. So long as it's good quality research, they will fund it. And then, of course, down here, you get the directed government departments. They want a solution for, you know, potholes. How can we make our roads not have potholes, or, you know, various things like that. Foundations. What's a foundation? The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation. Those are, you know, private enterprises, often, you know, with a big benefactor, but they have an agenda. They're trying to make a difference in the world, and it's a directed foundation. So they're saying we fund this type of research. So, for example, Bill and Melinda Gates, it's about funding improving the quality of life of people in low-income countries. I think that's their focus. Industry, you know, if you're working with a mining company or with a pharmaceutical company or whatever, you know, it's about their competitive advantage. How can you make them more competitive? They're not going to fund fundamental research. They're going to fund a solution to a problem that they have. And NGOs, some NGOs fund research, but again, they've got an agenda. It's the research that they want to help them do their job. So different funders fund in different quadrants. As I said, the HAL, I don't know who those are, stay clear. You do get angel donors that sort of are benefactors. They sort of latch on to a brilliant researcher and they just give them money and freedom to do what they want. Not often, and you know, if you find yourself in a situation like that, well, do make the most of it. So what I'm talking about here now is, depending on your project, which quadrant it is, this one or this one, you will apply to different funders. You don't apply for anyone to any funder. You choose your funder with care. Right, let me stop there and take a round of questions or comments. So is that new thinking? Have you ever thought of the world like that? Does it make sense? Do you get worried by what I'm saying? All right, Ishmael? All right, okay. A couple of comments.
Yeah,
does make sense. Interesting.
Yes, it does. It does. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Good. Super.
Hello.
Lovely.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Sure. All right. I'm just always checking in that everybody's with me. So it does make sense. Yeah, Ndisi.
Thank you for that. Very interesting. My question now would be, how would I know, for instance, the kind of projects that, let's say, a government institution or a foundation or industry is running, which they are looking for researchers to work on and are possibly willing to fund? What are the tips in terms of finding out that kind of information? For the university agencies, it's very easy. You just present your research and their calls, but on that other side now, it's a bit different. So that's what I wanted to find out.
Yeah, okay, so we're going to be talking a lot about that, so I won't just answer it now. The next few slides are going to deal with that, but that's the type of question that you need to be asking. How do I know which funder does what? And that's vital. So I just also want to pick up in the chat, concept of directed research becomes problematic in education, Zahira. So, you know, what I mean by directed research, they're telling you. So let's say the Gauteng Department of Education wants to understand the impact of COVID on its education process. So they're saying, I want to study, I will fund projects in that area. That's what I mean by directed. So if you're working in that area, brilliant. If you're not, well, you're not going to benefit from that funding. That's what I'm talking about here. So Michael says via funding calls will help you. No, absolutely. So the call. But let me go back to my slides and we'll talk a bit about this a little bit more. So important question that though. Thank you for asking it. So now what I'm going to share with you is 4 principles, and I call them the SOAP principles. Now SOAP is maybe misleading. It's got nothing to do with cleaning or washing or anything like that. It's just the letters SOAP that I wanted to remember, and so I came up with the word SOAP principles. Now the S in SOAP principles stands for select. Select the right funder. All right, so you conceive of a research project you've got, hey? I'm really keen to do this research project. And you've thought about it, is this curiosity driven or is this directed? You know, which area, strategic or curiosity, directed or curiosity, which area is it in? I've thought about that, and now I have to go and find a funder. So what I hope that you don't do is that when a funding opportunity comes available, I must apply. No, the first step is to think, is this funder appropriate for my project? Okay, so you need to start gathering information about the funder. So the NRF, what is the NRF about? The NRF is to try and encourage research publications from South Africa, trying to encourage postgrad student education, and that's essentially it. So that's very broad, and lots of things will fit into that. On the other hand, the Ford Foundation is trying to address inequality. So if my research doesn't address inequality, let's say I'm studying a new chemical reaction so that I can make a new product, that's not really going to address inequality. You know, I shouldn't be applying to the Ford Foundation. So that's what I mean here. Select the correct funder. Every funder has strings attached. Get to know what those strings are. How do you do that? You read the call document, as somebody mentioned. The call document is like an advert. We are looking for proposals in this area. Read the website. You know that everyone will have a website. You know, the Ford Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates, Wellcome Trust. All of these funders have websites. Start to read and get to understand what the funder is all about. Then if you like or can tolerate the strings, remember the strings, they want you to do something with the money that they give you. Nobody gives you money for no reason. You know, there's that saying, there's no such thing as a free lunch. If somebody invites you for lunch and says, don't worry, it's on me, you know that there's a reason behind it. There's an agenda. And it might be very, you know, innocuous, like I just want to know you better. But it could be, you know, I need you to do X, Y, Z for me. So understand what the funder is trying to achieve with their fund. None of them do it for the goodwill. Even the NRF, they want you to produce publications. Now, that's what we want to do as well, so it matches well. But, you know, as I said, Bill and Melinda Gates, it's not about the publications. It's about trying to make a difference in people's lives. So can you live with that? That's cool. Again, it sounds easy. But let me give you another example. Let's take the American, what's it called? The British American Tobacco Company. And they're funding research that is, and you read the website and whatnot, it's all about showing that smoking really isn't that bad. I mean, we've probably hyped it in the press that it's so bad. Hey? Can you live with that? Do you think you could live with that? They're offering you a lot of money. Can you tolerate that? You know, so maybe you'll say no, and then you'll go elsewhere. So not only do you choose the funder based on how it matches your project, but also, you know, some money might be tainted. Is that the right word? You need to think about that as well. So, and then if you can't live with those strings, you know, go elsewhere. Don't try and change the funder. When I was at the NRF, lots of people used to phone me up and come and visit me and say, look, you've got to change this program. It doesn't make sense, etc., etc. Hey, but, you know, it's the NRF. I can't change it. And, you know, don't try and change your funder. Just go elsewhere. Use your energy to go elsewhere. So just remember, strings are attached to this funding, and you've got to live with those strings. They mustn't compromise your academic freedom. It must enhance your academic freedom. All right. Next one. O. Ownership. O is for ownership. What do I mean? Take ownership of the process by understanding what the funder wants from the investment. So again, similar to what we said, you select, but really understand what the funder wants. Read the call document once, twice, 3 times. Really understand it. Not a skim read. It's a deep understanding. Okay? What does the funder want you to achieve with their funding? Okay? So read the guide, the website, read the call document, phone up the grant manager if you can do that, if they give a contact detail. Really read it and get to know it really well. And then, only then, are you ready to ask questions. Only then are you ready to ask questions. So I can't emphasize enough that you've got to deeply understand what the funder requires. Remember, you have to be one step faster than the man in that picture with the bear. And this is one way to get ahead, to really deeply understand what the funder wants. Now, most often we approach funding opportunities with the understanding of what we want. Yes, that's important, but you have to match it to what the funder wants. Otherwise, you'll never be successful. A is for application. Only then are you ready to begin writing the proposal. And this is where you don't use your creativity. Just stick to the guidelines they give you. Don't muck around here. Just give them the straightforward proposal as they requested. So most of us begin, let's be honest, here. We begin with the application, and we've missed the 2 steps of selection and taking ownership of understanding the funder's needs. And that's why we often fail in our applications, because we don't give the funder what they're looking for. And then the last one, P, is for partnership. So where possible, develop a funder-grant partnership, a fundee grant partnership. So this is not a corrupt partnership that I'm talking about, but just get to know them, and they will get to know you as a person who delivers on the grants that they give and meets their requirements and adds to their agenda, and you get to know them and what their needs are better and better. And, you know, as a result, your chances of success go up. Not from an insider perspective, just from knowing the funder really, really well. And I see people that, you know, really get involved with the funder. They do peer review for the funder. They attend meetings that the funder has. So they deeply understand what the funder is all about. So those are the SOAP principles